News, politics, entertainment, and more. Welcome to The Informant. Independent talk, pursuing truth, informing everyone. Now, here is The Informant, Eric Thompson.
Hey, good evening. Welcome to The Informant. Thank you so much for joining me. For those of you on the East Coast, good morning to you. We're here on a Wednesday diving in again to what's going on in our country. So I do want to thank you for sitting in again this evening, or if you're listening to a podcast later tonight or tomorrow or down the road, welcome. You're also, if you do ever do want to get a hold of me, you can go on my website, the-informant.com. You can also go on the typical social media platforms, including one that I own called magabook.com. That's free speech for everybody, and we're not going to be suppressing people and doing all that. So magabook.com. But I'm here to dig a little deeper. I'm working on some shows coming up with 5G, on this Green Deal and stuff like that. I want to show you the underpinnings of what exactly are the progressives and the globalists talking about, because something that has become real obvious to me. Now, I've been blessed to be able to travel to 13 countries, some for work and some for pleasure. I've talked to a lot of people around the country. I was able to broadcast from the Olive Tree Hotel in Jerusalem, and I did some Uber rides, 4,000 of them around Google, Facebook, Apple. So I was making money while I was interviewing them. And what's very clear to me, when you look at the news, when you look at the globalist, and then you see how they're working through the Marxists at the colleges, and if you listen to me on a regular basis, you're going to hear some constant themes, because I'm really concerned that even though conservatism, which I'm a conservative independent, even though I see us winning sometimes, we are still losing. And that's why we're going to talk about that tonight. Just to give you an idea, when President Trump won, I was doing an Uber ride up around Google, and I picked up a girl, and I said, where are you from? She said, I'm from Germany. I said, great. What brings you to the United States? She says, well, I'm from a think tank out of Berlin, a globalist think tank. I mean, what are the odds of that? It's perfect for me. They don't know I'm interviewing them, but I'm asking them a lot of questions, and they're talking a lot because they felt comfortable in my car. So what brings a globalist to Silicon Valley, where everybody's liberal? She said, well, I was actually sent here to travel around California to interview people and find out how did the United States go back to nationalism. What happened? And the question that I think I have to ask a lot of people is, are we willing to step up now to save our constitutional republic, or are we just going to try to somewhat get engaged right before election time and hope that we can pull it out? Because there's some things that aren't really going our way that could make a significant difference in the election, including there's going to be over 1 million new possible voters for the Democratic Party in Florida alone. Why is that important? Well, the First and Second Amendment are obviously under attack. Well, in New Zealand, because they had a shooting, a terrible shooting, but they had a shooting, the Prime Minister said semi-automatic weapons are no longer legal in New Zealand. Just like that. Doesn't matter that there was 87,000 murders by Islamists last year around the world. You have one in New Zealand, and it's a mosque, 2 mosques, then gun rights gone, stripped. They don't have a constitution like ours to protect the gun owners, so they're gone. Period. So when I've been to Israel, Jordan, Turkey, and these different places, and France and Italy, and you talk to the people, they're living under their dysfunctional forms of government that have failed over the centuries, but that's all they've known. So they've gone from communism back to kind of free, and then this country conquers this country, and democratic socialism, pseudo-Marxism back to So you have this constant turmoil. So you have generations after generations that have been able to say, well, great-great-grandpa served in this war and blah, blah, blah. And the reality is no one's really shooting us except for some Muslim terrorists in our countries of France and England and things like that. And we've got nice stuff. So we don't really care that the government's taken away free speech from people because we don't want to hear about Jesus or hear about conservative ideas anyway. So it's okay for them to take that. It's okay that they have like thought police, or people police officers, like hundreds and thousands of them in some cities, that are watching social media posts and then arresting people immediately because they shared their free expression. They shared their thoughts on social media, which the government said is hate speech if it's not nice, and then they go and arrest you. If you're a street preacher and you're around a Muslim group and they object, they'll arrest you. So as we do this every evening, Monday through Friday, and like I said, you can go on Spreaker, Informant, or you can go to my website, The Informant, for the older shows. What I'm trying to bring out of this is that if we don't immediately deal with immigration, deal with the progressives, the colleges and things like that, which you're going to hear a lot from me. So if you don't want, if like, hey, you just said that twice in the last 5 shows, that's just how it is, because unless we fix the problems, then in a couple of years, it won't matter. Then we'll literally be on the ship. We'll be on the Titanic. Ice has been hit. Water's pouring in. And there's nothing we'll be able to do about it. Well, that's kind of a pessimistic way of looking. Well, I'm a realist. Okay? Now, I can get preachy on you as a Christian. I have a network called K-Truth we'll be doing, which is politics and Christianity. So I believe God is sovereign, and I am not concerned about my salvation or my future. I just would like to make sure that my children and grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren can live in a country that we've grown up in and enjoy the benefits of the Constitution that it affords us. That's why I do this. I'm concerned that I'm 51. So in 20 years, do I want to be walking around and let's say for some reason I'm not in the best part of town and I can't have a gun anymore? Because, well, you served in the military 40 years ago, and so we've got a ban on former military people, and that the Supreme Court has ruled, that militias are really protected, but not the individual, and states have a right to kind of take away guns from non-military. I mean, you can picture that. It seems like that's not going to happen, but do you think the people in New Zealand who don't have the constitutional protection, do you think a month ago if you said, hey, you're going to lose your AR-15? The government's going to make it illegal? No, it's ridiculous. This is New Zealand. That would never happen. Well, it happened. And here we are in America, and I can go on, and we'll do shows on it. The different cities like Dearborn and Detroit and Houston and over in Brooklyn and around Minneapolis and around the country of the growth. They call it creeping Sharia. So Islam's growing. The radical Islam's growing and growing. But because our immigration laws are so screwy, we have the most ridiculous immigration laws in the world. Period. They're ridiculous. Ridiculous. And why are they ridiculous? Because they don't look out for the citizens of the country. They're all about people outside the country. And the people inside the country don't seem to have a say in it, because when the code, U.S. code and the Constitution has been getting added to amendments, and, instead of having a 820A, we'll have 820C or something like we spoke about last night, when it deals with the court, Supreme Court having to say, well, no, yes, illegal alien criminals, when they get released, then they should be treated like everybody else, even ones that didn't commit crimes, and be able to get out on bail. But there was a B and a C that were added onto the code, so that's not the case. Well, that's kind of where we are right now, is that everything is pushing on, and the immigration laws are like, well, this was back years ago when these were written. Well, we're short on workers because of World War II and Vietnam, and so if they had the Immigration Act that they changed, I think it was in the middle 60s, like 65 or something, and they said, after World War I, the country was kind of like, we don't want a lot of Chinese people coming in and Japanese because of the wars and stuff, so we're going to kind of stop immigration for the most part. Then they're like, well, we need people, so let's bring in people. And then in Johnson, when he did this new deal, this immigration reform, well, let's change. If somebody comes in, then let's let them bring their family over, and their family's family, and uncles and aunts, and then they'll have more support, and they will be able to be self-supported. But what's happened is, you can see it, chain migration, the visa lottery. They even have a lottery where they don't even really know who the people are, but if they're from countries that we're not getting a lot of immigrants from, they choose some of them and say, Merry Christmas. You're not really needed in America's economy. You're really not going to benefit our country, but you get to come in. And then when you get here, you can bring over your wife and your parents and your children. So, hey, we're up at the station break already. You're listening to The Informant on Spreaker. You can also hear it on the-informant.com and other platforms. Also, check out my social media site, www.magabook.com. Post your news, thoughts, and everything as we get ready for 2020. All right, so immigration laws are allowing people pouring in, family members, visa lottery. We have a heavy anchor babies are being born because the 14th Amendment has been misinterpreted because they said it wasn't clarified enough. So people that can come across 9 months pregnant, the next day have a baby, bam, full citizenship rights for the child. So let's jump into how Democrats are winning even when they're losing. Now, the reason why Democrats are able to do this, and you're going to hear this guy mentioned frequently on my show, I don't know about other shows. There was a book written in 1971, and it was called The Rules for Radicals. Saul D. Alinsky, A Pragmatic Primer for Realistic Radicals. Now, Saul Alinsky, he from 1939 to 1971, he went through lower income areas, and he said, I'm going to write a book on city organizing, and I'm going to put some rules down for people that are in the future are going to go around and they're going to try to take structured societies, deconstruct them, and then build them up to be little Marxist cities and states, and eventually the United States. Alinsky believed in collective action. You hear that term a lot, right? Grassroots, community organizing. You've got this groupthink. You've got this collective. The collective, which means, like, if a white police officer